Hello, my name is Dennis O'Neill, and my background is 25 years of investment banking experience. Taken dozens of companies public, raised a couple of $1 billion in early stage capital, have spoken at over 75 conferences globally on venture capital, private equity, and blockchain. And we assist companies that are looking to raise capital either through an STO or venture capital or private equity.
Cool. Morgan.
Hey guys, I'm Morgan Hill from Addis Capital. I run a crypto hedge fund. We trade quantitatively and we trade pretty much around the clock, try to generate a positive alpha ROI for our investors. And yeah, I've been in the space basically since the latest bull run circa 2016, 2017. And I think this technology is going to be here to stay. So I'm invested in it, and I'm invested in educating people about it and getting them to financially and I would say at least, involve their brain in learning about the technology, because it's going to be growing in places we probably won't even expect.
And then
Hi, my background is in management consulting, banking, and quantitative finance. I actually got into blockchain when I was testing different algorithmic trading strategies and when I was launching a fund called Satoshi Capital. More recently, I'm working at a company called Symbiont. We're a large permission blockchain company focused on financial institutions mainly. And also we started doing more stuff within supply chain.
Okay, guys, and what is the best news on this week? The
price of Bitcoin. That's good news, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I would say that obviously that the fact that the cryptos are doing so well right now, especially Bitcoin, obviously that increases the amount of capital available to invest in other crypto projects. A lot of these investors will borrow against their crypto opposed to selling it to invest in projects. And, the better that Bitcoin's doing, that the more capital becomes available to be able to finance some of these companies.
Yeah, and part of the rally is driven by, there's that higher institutional participation in the market. Part of that was driven by positive news from large players like PayPal entering the market. Also, the whole thing about MicroStrategy investing a large portion of their treasury in Bitcoin. Those are positive things from the trust perspective. In terms of actual market dynamics, that should, if successful, actually bring negative price pressure. But in the meantime, people are just just enjoying the hype, and that's why the market's going up. Also, because of the election uncertainty finally going away, markets hate uncertainty. Once you know who's gonna win, then that uncertainty goes away. So now that we know who won, at least according to all the major networks, then that uncertainty goes away and the market rallies. And again, going back to that institutional participation, risky assets rally with the rest of the market. So the stock market also rallied on that when that uncertainty went away, and then cryptocurrencies being a risky asset just tagged along for a ride. And also something very interesting that was observed over the past week or so, it's probably driven also by the same rally, is that a lot of the balances from exchange wallets has gone down. And what people, what analysts are saying is that this actually means that people are hodling off exchange, meaning they're going to hold those funds for the long term because they're okay, things went up a lot. I'm not selling anytime soon, so I don't want to hold my funds at an exchange. So that's positive for price in the short term.
Yeah, I would say that as we're getting more and more clear guidance and regulations, from multiple different countries around the world, and you're starting to see the banks start moving into banks outside the United States, moving into the crypto market, servicing the crypto market. That's just making the spigot get wider and wider and wider. And then as this asset is becoming very, very liquid and more reliable, you're starting to see that the larger players or corporations are seeing that this is a way to bypass the banking fees, all the delays that happen internationally, and all the fees that are charged by just transferring money internationally, especially in some, into third world countries and things of that sort. So yeah, I mean, it's just like everything. The audience continues to build. The more audience you have, a certain percentage of them will participate in these markets in a significant way, and the audience continues to grow globally.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to bounce off of that because, yes, I think like some companies, smaller ones perhaps, are actually, and mostly retail customers are taking advantage of using crypto for international transfers, but large companies are not there yet. It's still not a proven technology from the enterprise perspective. Of course, it works, and more companies should be using it. The problem is that if you are a corporation, there are no payment rails right now that are legit enough to connect to a cryptocurrency to send stuff abroad. And even if you find a service that works, which there are a lot of them that works and the technology already exists. But so even if you have that, then this corporation would be facing the issues of taxes and accounting for cryptocurrencies, which in some cases is not worth the headache. So I think yes, there's opportunity for that. I think we're far from adoption from the large companies yet.
Well, what I would say is that I think that you're correct in that when you're looking at transferring money between, Western countries, but if you're operating within Africa or some different Asian countries and Middle Eastern countries where that it is very, very difficult to move money in and out of the country to cover payroll, things of that sort. To make buys for supplies or equipment and things of that sort, for them to be able to bypass the problematic areas, to do business. I mean, I think you're right on the other aspects, but when there's these are real pain points for some of these countries, and I've sat through a bunch of conferences to where that there were multiple countries that moving size back and forth in and out of these countries because of that, sometimes it takes them 3 or 4 months to get a sizable wire through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you're talking about emerging markets where you don't have reliable payment rails, or even worse, kind of like transaction restrictions, then yes, of course, cryptocurrency make a lot of sense. That's a very valid point.
Guys, and what's going on with election and COVID-19? Because they have a lot of cases.
Haven't you heard they cured it?
Yes, actually,
Yeah.
they have some cases in my office.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's booming here in the U.S. I hear it's booming in Europe. COVID's not good, but hopefully this is the last round. Obviously, there's multiple vaccines that are coming to the market. I think that is, kind of bolstering the market from typically you'd see a collapse, if you've seen a spike in COVID and shutdowns, which means, major impact of revenue streams to, multitudes of industries. So it's just, obviously there's firm belief in the market now that one of these vaccines they're gonna roll out aggressively, and that it will be curbed significantly. I would just like to see
I would
a
say
treatment.
so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say so at all. I'd say basically that they're preparing as if they are. But I mean, if the CEO of Pfizer was so confident in his vaccine, why the hell did he sell immediately? I mean, oh yeah, I just had a extra house or two to buy. I mean,
Well, something they said that was a planned sale, but something, he planned it right after he put out the press release. To put out the press release just before he sells. Yeah, if that's not the shadiest deal in the world, I don't know what is.
I think my team's prepared for a rollover very soon. I think we're probably going to take another leg lower. I don't know if we drop off a cliff, but I think we're going to surprise people who are hoping for a Christmas rally, and we're going to get a Christmas dump instead. It doesn't happen that often, but it's 2020, so that would totally fit with the theme of 2020 so far.
Well, as long as they keep. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Christmas rally onto a cliff happens pretty much every year. Like, it's like if it doesn't drop off a cliff right before New Year's, it happens right afterwards. It's just gonna go towards that again.
Yeah.
And again, it's 2020, so it's probably gonna be even worse.
And a lot of this is just based upon all these countries just printing money. It's not based upon revenues or earnings and things of that sort. That these economies are being propped up by just stimulus.
Yep. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
part and parcel of the
And-
whole process.
Yeah.
And going
And
back
what's
to the
going-
correlation, with institutional, well, the larger participation of institutional investors and the correlation with traditional markets, the equity market has had a huge bull run this year.
Mhm.
It is very likely that a lot of investors are going to harvest gains before the end of the year, or losses for whoever actually has losses on that. So
Yeah.
if there's a sell-off in the equities market, which is a much needed correction, again, because of the increased correlation between equities and other risky assets like crypto assets specifically, that's gonna trigger a drop. Even if crypto investors are hodling, there will be selling pressure regardless.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, I think that there's going to be, I mean, I don't think there's going to be a sell-off before January 1st. There's plenty of dry powder. These fund managers will continue to plow money into their investments to make sure that they're propped up for performance by the end of the year. But, you know, when typically you reposition after the first of the year, and I think that, you know, after that, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Mm-hmm. And how it look like for the election? What do you
I
think?
think this is gonna
It's
play
over.
into it, actually.
It's over. Everybody knows it except Trump.
I mean, do you guys see what he did with the Pentagon this week? Like literally 2 days ago, he like really decapitated the senior management at the Pentagon and installed his own like stooges. And they're really like extremists. Like one guy said he would lock up Obama and he would execute John Brennan, the CIA. The other guy, wow, he's like basically they're starting to put in some crazy policies already. Like, did Trump pass like an executive order today that you're not allowed to invest in any Chinese company that has a tangential relationship to any part of military in China? So I think we're going to see some crazy. It's a little bit terrifying to talk in that military terms the way he did it. Like that was, you know, he hasn't worried about like the EPA or anybody in housing or anything like that. It's just the military. So I don't know what's going to happen, but you know, he's going to start talking about the legal side of things. And I think there's probably going to be some extreme volatility and just it's going to play out because people will be very, very uncertain. He's not going to give up. That was from the beginning. And he's going to fight it all the way. And remember, on the 2000 election, Al Gore was president-elect for, you know, a month and a half. Like that was president-elect, just like Joe Biden is now. So nothing's really changed. He could fight this all the way to the Supreme Court. And guess what? Everyone on the Supreme Court hates Biden. Biden has personally screwed over at least like 50% of the Supreme Court. They have vendettas against the guy. So I'm terrified of this outcome because it's just going to create so much, you know, uncertainty. And it's all going to be in December. I think that's when the ballots and everything have to be, you know, taken care of, and they have to like give the presidency elect to someone for sure, like officially.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is all nonsense. I mean, this is just Trump making one last attack on our democracy and our democratic process. It's all complete nonsense. None of it holds any water in any way, shape, or form. And basically, what he's doing is he's attacking our democracy and creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt in how people are elected, which is ultimately you know, helping all of our adversaries around the world to make sure that the United States is not united, but we're as divided as possible, and that we spend so much time fighting each other that we're ill prepared to do anything else.
So historically, any recounts have only changed a few hundred votes here and there at a state level. All the margins that Biden holds over Trump in the swing states, with the exception of North Carolina, are in the thousands, if not tens of thousands of votes. It's unlikely that a recount is going to change anything. And also,
well,
a lot of people
play, right? It's not any of the BS little maneuvers like, oh, this guy was backdating ballots, or oh, this guy tossed out a few ballots, or this guy's a huge, Biden supporter and we caught him in the back room. It's none of that. It's going to be immaterial. And I mean, that's just going to raise doubt about our, the efficiency or, the pedigree of our whole electoral system, which I'm embarrassed by, because I worked on the Help America Vote Act in after 2000, like 2006, that came out of the post 2000 crisis in Florida. And our whole thing was digitizing voting to make it streamlined and easy and efficient. And so you'd be able to keep people's records in a centralized area and have access to update voter registration and voter information, on an ongoing basis. So the fact that it's been decentralized now, and now one of the bigger software firms that have been developed appear to have issues. And that's what Trump is going to hit on. He's not going to hit on, these things we're hearing about now where people are like, there's no fraud or there's fraud. He's going to hit on computer systematic glitches that happen in multi-states.
Yeah, well, but just to be clear, he won by less margins in some of these states the last time around, and he had no problem with that. And not only that, but there was clear interference from Russia, which he denied, and he did not want that investigated in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, this is just total hypocrisy and to the worst degree, and somebody that's putting themselves and their party over the country, because it's all complete nonsense, and it's all very, very damaging.
So the expectation is that
fraud happened. That's the thing. It doesn't matter if we should have called out fraud in 2016, 2008, 2012. I don't know, but if it's called out now and it's true, then he has a valid argument to do whatever he needs to. So that's
I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to go through court, and everybody knows that it's very, very flimsy. He's just throwing, crap against the wall to see what will stick. And
have you seen the Dominion software though? They've been writing PhD analysts been saying it's horrible for years, but nobody's done anything. They've just totally whitelisted it and ignored it. So if Trump is able to make a case against that in multi-states, then I don't know what's going to happen, but you can't just
you would have to prove that it was hacked, and that it was hacked on to the benefit of the Democrats. But I'm not here to have a legal debate about what's going to happen or not. At the end of the day, we know what's happening. He's attacking the democratic process. And no other president has done this before. That system's been in place for many election systems times already. So every single loser could have said that, including Hillary Clinton. And it's now he's going to be the great discoverer of the biggest liar that ever lived as president. He's going to tell us the truth.
Yeah, the mainstream expectation is that nothing's going to change in terms of the recounts, and then any actions that he takes, and even prior ones that he has taken through executive action, are just going to be undone by Biden. So really, I don't think the market's pricing in any uncertainty about this. The only thing that could shake the market is if suddenly he decides to take military action against some country, some attack somewhere. That would shake the equity markets, and that would resonate through the crypto markets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he'll be too busy writing all the pardons and trying to figure out how he pardons himself.
By the way, let's talk about Ethereum's.
Yes, Ethereum's. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, what's going on?
So from my perspective, of course, coming from the permission blockchain side, I love an opportunity to point out weaknesses in public blockchains. Again, public blockchains have great use cases in simple peer-to-peer payment transfers. For stuff more complicated, there's an issue, and part of that issue is the fact that you don't control the governance, you don't control the infrastructure. So if you're a company, why would you depend on an infrastructure that is completely out of your control? And actually, in this case, what happened was that several nodes were on an older version of Go Ethereum Geth, which is kind of like their it's part of their consensus protocol. So some of their old nodes were on an older consensus version, and then that caused them to essentially fork out, and they were in a shorter chain. And then the crazy part is actually there's a service run by consensus, and what's the name? I forget what the name. Anyways, there's a service run by consensus that runs a bunch of nodes for a lot of different companies, like MakerDAO, MetaMask, Uniswap, even Compound. And then all these nodes were on the old version. And then when this bug was triggered and then it forked, then all these services were down. So that
Dan, did they not know that this was coming? Because it was unannounced, and it was unannounced to the market before it happened.
Yeah, so apparently the bug was fixed something like 2 years ago, and then or like a long time ago, and they were expecting that all the nodes would upgrade. And then there was this separate team that is building a layer 2 solution on top of Ethereum, and they were like testing their system. They're like, there seems to be a bug on our code, and then they realized, no, it seems to be coming from Ethereum. And then they checked that most nodes were updated, and they were like, well, let's trigger the bug to see what happens. and then they brought down pretty much the service that runs 80% of the Ethereum backbone. And that just shows you how centralized something like Ethereum can be. And it's a disaster. There's some services in which you're depending on touching base with the mainnet, and if you don't know what Ethereum's doing, you can have like people lose their funds on staking schemes and stuff like that, because you lose connectivity with the mainnet. You're separate.
Yeah, interesting.
So how come this wasn't planned better? I really thought there was, going to be kind of like a release to everyone who was actually with Ethereum or operating or had a service would have got something and said, here's what's happening. Here's what's going to look like, here's when the dates are, here's how, who, what, when, where, why, all like the major things you need to know. Like, because I was just wondering, like, okay, we know that they've already had one failed fork where Ethereum Classic had to get split off early on. And I would just like, are they going to have to do another one for ETH 2.0, or is it just automatically going to upgrade, the code based on, your existing ETH? I was trying to figure that out, and I still don't feel like I know the answer to that.
My understanding is that when the nodes upgrade, they just come back to the longer chain, and that's it. That chain is essentially the transactions in that chain are simply rolled back. They don't count.
So we're not going to have like ETH 2.0 symbols. It's going to be the same ETH, just with upgraded coding.
Yeah, exactly. Because essentially you would need a bunch of nodes to keep running that older consensus version, which had an issue. So got it. There's no incentive to keep running like nodes with that consensus that had a bug in it. But the main thing is that essentially you have one of the largest open source projects bringing down a ton of different companies that build on top of Ethereum. You would expect that an open source project of this magnitude would be like well coordinated, and apparently what's coming out is that they're underfunded, and there's plenty of these decisions where they say like, we're not going to announce the bug because there could be some damage done. So they go down that dangerous path of security by obscurity. And it's amazing that they didn't coordinate. Oh, Infura, that's the name. They didn't coordinate with Infura, which is this service that runs like 80% of all these like services. It's like, at the very least, if you're going to do it quietly, coordinate with the main guys. It's a little too one-sided and way too centralized for what is supposed to be, allegedly, one of the top 5 decentralized blockchains in the world.
Yeah, I saw the Binance tweet from CZ, and I'm just like, that's really embarrassing that, he's having a problem with the block. I mean, that's like one of the biggest exchanges out there, and you can't. Yeah. They didn't even know like what was going on, and they're like, oh, you're running the Infura, right? And that was a trigger that everyone who had that had a block error or something.
Well, it hasn't affected the price too much. I mean, obviously it's still doing strong.
Well, the price actually went up because like a lot of people don't understand the magnitude of how bad this was.
Yeah.
Also, like this could even have repercussions within the permission ecosystem. If you look at Hyperledger Besu and Consensus Quorum, those are two private Ethereum permission blockchains that they leverage the Geth protocol for their consensus. And then on top of that, they have their privacy layers. But then that means like this Besu and Besu and Quorum are actually based on Ethereum to benefit from this open source amazing project. And now this open source amazing project is having these highly irresponsible bugs.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'd
and-
hate to be the guy that financed that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like an amazing thing, the Silk Road wallet. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Last week. Yeah, it was from government.
What's that?
So what's going to happen?
Oh, yeah, the Silk Road wallet. That last week we were talking about that there was a movement of $1 billion out of a wallet that was associated with Silk Road, and a Bitcoin wallet, and now it came out that it was actually it was taken by the government. So the question is, well, there was some analysis, chain analysis actually helped them get to who was the owner of that wallet, and then allegedly the government essentially forced this person to hand it over. So unlike what many people think, it's not that they hacked the wallet somehow. It's more that they figure out, okay, like this person has it, and then they went to the person and said, like, give us the funds or else. And there you go.
Sounds like the mafia.
Well, that's allegedly what happened. But at the same time, like if somebody's sitting on a wallet that has $1 billion,
Yeah.
wouldn't you use those $1 billion to somehow like make it more secure and get away with it? I don't know,
for sure. Yeah, you should have moved it. Either that, or you have a lot more than $1 billion, and you needed to protect the rest of it. You know.
That's actually a very good point. It's kind of like a sacrificial $1 billion to protect the.
Yeah, exactly. To
what
protect
else
the
we
rest
have.
of the assets. Yeah, the big payoff. But I mean, what was really interesting is that you can move $1 billion and it affected the market zero. You know, so that's pretty impressive.
Well, it's because all the trading happens on the razor's edge between the marginal supply versus the marginal demand, and backdoor deals don't really impact price, just like the stock market.
It's like psychology, though. It's the psychology of it. Potentially, that somebody's going to sell $1 billion. That's why they're moving it.
Well, I think we might see the other side of that. That's what people are speculating on, that we're going to see when the Fed. Well, I think the weird thing about this doesn't you guys hear that the Fed has to sell this all in one block? So there's a bunch of like Silicon Valley firms that are, chomping at the bit to get a hold of this.
Yeah.
So
I
that,
can imagine.
That'd be interesting because, like, let's say Coinbase buys it, right?
Or all the short sellers that need to cover.
Oh, that would be interesting too. Yeah.
I'm sure they're bidding for some of it.
I mean, I'm sure, like, they'll allow someone to get a pool together and then just buy it and distribute amongst their pool. But, $1 billion ask is pretty high for anyone.
Yeah. I
Why
mean,
do they need to sell it as one block? Because it's kind of like when the FBI seizes like vehicles or something from drug lords or something, they sell it vehicle by vehicle or mansion by mansion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I heard, I don't know if it's true.
Satoshis.
I heard they might have to sell it by the block. I don't know why they would, but I don't know. Can we research that? Like,
yeah, not only that, but you got the potential to impact the market, or that if you sell it and that the person that you seized it from are going to say, you didn't get enough for it. You should have sold it earlier, should have sold it later. If you just sell it in one block, it's just done,
Yeah.
Oh, but it's going to be an auction. So like if it's definitely like $1 billion and you got to buy it all at once, then you're going to have syndicates of people like buying.
Yeah,
for it.
for sure.
Have a bunch of crypto funds getting together, or a bunch of corporations that wanted to get Bitcoin just going and banding together to buy it at a discount. And then it's going to bid up until it gets bought at full market price or something.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll probably get a 5% discount or something like that, maybe 10.
Yeah, guys, and
they'll be hedging that 10% before they buy it.
Yeah. Guys,
I wonder, like, I don't even think it would move the market, especially if it's a single transaction.
Mm-hmm.
then it's a one transaction, like a transaction, a spike in volume, and then that's it. And then people are gonna know, like, yeah, that's that sale, like
Yeah,
a
it's
bump
over.
sale, but
Yeah,
no,
so
it's actually
now,
still.
yeah, it's like a seller in stock. If you know there's a big block out there, the market usually goes down a little bit, but then once the block's cleared out, it usually trades much higher.
Plus, they could sell it like off chain. It doesn't need to be sold on an exchange. It can just happen behind the scenes, so nobody would even know what it's sold for. I'm pretty sure it's gonna hit the news, but I don't think it would move the market really.
Guys, any insights for next week? Something interesting, what we're waiting for?
The SEC is going to approve all crypto related projects.
Wow. Daniel, what do you think? Dennis? Yeah.
I mean, what I would say is that, I would expect that the crypto markets are going to continue to strengthen. I think that we're going to start seeing, just like we're seeing more PayPal-like players in the space joining in. Now, as the bigger players jump in, then the other bigger players realize it's a land grab. So, I think that we're going to start seeing bigger and bigger players step in. Because they see that it's a lucrative market, it's a new market, it's a booming market, and you have to chase growth, and this is where the growth is.
Morgan, Daniel,
any insights from your
any insights? Any insights?
I've just been watching the price appreciation so far. I was thinking about like 2 years ago, when we saw the crazy run up in 2018 and the fall off, and I don't think we're anywhere close to like a topping pattern again. And I don't even think we're getting into the period where people funnel into it for mass adoption. And there's so many catalysts, I think, that could trigger that with, a change of the guard, basically. Or if Trump tries to stay around, even more so. So I think there's going to be a pretty interesting period of volatility coming up. And I think any retracements that we get or any pullbacks in price will be a good chance to get in at a lower level. Because at the moment, there's not like an imminent catalyst that says it's going to go to like, 30,000 or beyond. That wasn't there yesterday. That wasn't there, a week ago. I mean, if anything, you're saying, oh, great, the government found more Bitcoin and they're going to basically unlock it and put it to the market. So, that could trigger, could trigger a little bit of a sell-off because you got more supply than demand in the moment. So I think that could start factoring in when they start trying to sell that. I'm not sure when they will. Seems like it takes forever because it's a government agency. But I don't know. I'm thinking probably not a lot of action. Just a little bit of price fluctuation around probably like, from I'd say like 14,000 to 18,000 range for Bitcoin in the next couple of weeks.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. If you want to know where Bitcoin's going, just look at GBTC. It's Grayscale. It's a publicly traded fund. And it seems that it's always trading at a significant premium to the actual Bitcoin price. So, and typically it's because money's pouring into them, and then they're pouring money into Bitcoin, and then you start seeing Bitcoin, it starts catching up to where they were priced. So it's very, very interesting. I mean, obviously that they're getting billions and billions of dollars every quarter to invest in. It's primarily Bitcoin, but they do some other cryptos as well. But it's I always thought that everybody would short it and just buy the Bitcoin and keep the difference. But instead, that Bitcoin seems to be catching up to their premium, opposed to them trading down to the market.
Well, my theory on that actually that's very simple. It's that you're looking at a premium for the services that are built in. If I'm a big institution and I want to just go buy Bitcoin, I could do that, but I'd have to find people who have Bitcoin, like an exchange or even an OTC desk somewhere, and buy it directly from them. And then I have to go through all the headache of the custodianship transfer, you know, the risks and all of those things associated. So when you buy into the trust, you're basically bypassing all of that, and it's all being taken care of for you. And that's a sticky point still, and that's like the only one that's keeping large institutions from broadly adopting it, is because they don't have that safety. They don't have the assurance of, okay,
they
what
don't have
happens?
the custodial. They have the custodial issues and the insurance and some of the other issues. Yeah, for sure.
That's
But
the
I mean, the
reason
one thing for them is that one of their shares represents 0.9 Bitcoin, which would probably put it at about $14.50 a share, $15 a share, and it's trading up at 18 at a premium. And typically, I've been watching it. I own it, and opposed to it trading down to Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin seems to be trading up to it, because obviously they're pouring significant capital into Bitcoin every quarter.
Actually, I think wasn't it like a month ago, Grayscale announced that they had raised like $1 billion. So that also probably contributed to this run up on Bitcoin, because if they raise $1 billion to invest in a passive fund, that's $1 billion that's gonna be going like slow and steady in a you know, like just quantitative strategy, like buying without moving the market, but it's still $1 billion. It's gonna move the market, and that may have as well move the market to where it is. At least partially.
It's an open fund, so that there's money pouring in on a regular basis. I think that, I mean, they've raised probably $3 or $4 billion in the last quarter, a couple of quarters. So they've been making regular announcements. And Morgan, I think you're correct. I mean, when you take all the headaches of the custodial issues and everything else out of it for, you know, institutional investors, it just makes it easier. It's that way they don't have to worry about having a wallet, doing all the reporting, specialized accounting, because none of their systems are developed around that. So it's you have a lot of one-offs, which is horrible if you're an institution, because you know, they like to keep everything buttoned down, which means, you know, mountains of paperwork before you can do a buy.
Yeah, it's basically they're, you know, taking care of it for them. They've set it up, and, you know, kudos to them for being the first mover and getting this all set up, you know, well in advance. So, you know, there's going to be other ones that will come out, but they got the first mover, so, you know, that's pretty impressive.
Well, everybody else tried to do an ETF and got rejected. So these guys did it. You know, I mean, it was a miracle they got it approved, because obviously the SEC has not been very helpful with approving anything, guidance, or putting any regulations in place that would be helpful to the market, despite, you know, the significant public interest and public will in the space. It's they're defying it. You know, it's sad to see, but as demand continues to grow, they will have to capitulate at some point in time.
I mean, we actually did the same. We made an ISIN, so you could, you know, register internationally and put it in Bloomberg and come up. And the whole thing was set up. The whole chain was set up from, you know, going to your Charles Schwab broker, entering the ISIN, saying like to buy this crypto product, you know, and we were basically offering it like as a, you know, a fund ETF or an exchange traded note as a product, not, you know, not the ETF strategically because of issues. But once the whole thing was completed, we found out that essentially on the backside, none of the banks would be correspondent banks for the crypto fund. So they had no problem taking in their clients' money for crypto, assigning it to this ISIN number and allocating it. But then when the payment time came to pay the funds, i.e. like ourselves, for the service of offering this product and trading this product, they would be unwilling to send the client money payment to a crypto fund for liability purposes. So I don't know if that's changed, but it just, you know, we just kind of had to give up on that at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fighting regulation is not pretty, and it's not easy, and it's never fast. So it's, you know, and it's, despite how logical it seems that, you know, certain things should be, are just should be done beyond, you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's still an arduous process. It's disappointing. I mean, some of the smaller countries are really nimble and fast, but you know, the bigger ones have been very difficult.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. You know, I think that there'll probably be political changes too that help it along. I'd imagine that was what I decided to stay in this space 2 years ago in 2018 when I realized that the politicians, the economists, they weren't really fighting the idea and the concept of crypto. Logically and intuitively, they understood the value it will add to, economies, for better or worse. You have trustless, but you also have
but Morgan, at the same time, you have to understand crypto is a direct threat to the banks, and the banks fund a lot of politicians. So yeah, I mean, you could show them a tsunami of evidence, and they're like, we don't see it. It's
right.
I mean, this is not if it's logical or what's best. It's protecting entrenched interest. I mean, that's just the reality. And I don't know when that stops, but hopefully it does soon.
I mean, if that was really true, though, do you feel like they would fight harder, or are they like not fighting? Like, it feels like they'd be fighting harder to me if that was the truth.
Well, I mean, we could go through it. Obviously, they gave no guidance, no regulations. They let a bunch of these, crypto offerings happen, and ICOs, and then they went back and they prosecuted every single one of them, and they ended up with like $1.5 billion in fines. So it became a major win for them to give no regulations, no guidance, do whatever you want, and then just you come in and just take everybody's money. So it's and you can't tell me that they didn't know what they were going to, that they were going to do this. Otherwise, they would have stopped those from happening. They would have just stopped them altogether. But instead, they let them happen. Then they just came in and it became a big moneymaker for them.
Yeah, I mean,
that's all I got for tonight, guys. I haven't eaten dinner yet.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you for this live
Thank
stream.
you so much. I appreciate it.
Morgan.
Thanks,
Nice to meet you, Morgan. Good to see you, Dan.
Yes, thank you
guys.
so much.
Take care.
Have a good,
Bye-bye.
have a good night and